UFC 298 is in the bag, and Ilia Topuria has dethroned the king and is the new featherweight champion. Before we get into that, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe as we have brand new videos every single week. So, Mark, Ilia Topuria defeated Alexander Volkanovski by second round KO. Were you expecting the fight to play out like this?
I'll just say I'm gutted for Volk, but
Yeah.
all week my predictions are zigzag between Ilya and Volk. I was I was not surprised, but I was shocked, if that makes sense at the same
Yeah.
time. I was like, obviously we've got our reaction video that's going up for that as well, so make sure you check that out. I think it was just more, this is his featherweight run. Done. He's ran this division since 2019. So, and now, there's a new kid in town who has now managed to take the belt off him. He backed up
Yeah.
all the trash talk. What did you think? Were you surprised? Were you just as shocked as what I were?
Yeah, it's not just a new kid in town, it's the new king in town, isn't it? He is to knock off Volk like that. Yeah, I was surprised, but like you, surprised and not surprised all in the same go, because I did keep saying Ilya does have that finishing power, and he managed to get hold of Volk, and it's heartbreaking, like we were saying, but it is what it is, and it's how it plays out sometimes. And hopefully Volk can come back. And sort of talking of Volk coming back, do you think how dominant a champion he's been, he deserves that instant rematch?
Yeah, featherweight, I think definitely. He even said in the post-fight interview, he's talking about Spain, maybe we do a rematch over there. So that's Volk, like obviously he's talking about a rematch for himself to obtain the title back, but on Ilya's turf, he's used to the enemy territory. If Ilya's got any sense, he'll want to do it as well, because it's a big payday as well, to get this rematch in the bag. And he's just defeated with a devastating knockout who many people consider to be the best featherweight ever of all time.
Exactly,
So
right.
it makes
That's it, isn't
sense.
it? Yeah, definitely. For Ilya, it's the right decision, isn't it? Because, like you were saying, it's a big pay-per-view. It'll sell really well. And it's someone he's already beat now. So he'll come in with all that confidence, and he's the champion. And then surely he can do it again. But I hope not. I really hope Volk can pull this back and come in there. But are you now worried for Volk, though, Mark, with him having two KO losses in a row? We've seen it before with people like Chuck Liddell and stuff like that. Once you get caught, it's hard to pull it back, isn't it? It's like your chin deteriorates and it feels like you're just going to get knocked out over and over and over again.
Well, absolutely. That's the main worry, in the sense of, because it's not just your actual chin itself, like the surface of it and absorbing strikes. It's just that sort of mental game, the psychological side of it as well. Like what was such an indestructible mindset and moving forward, ready for absolutely everything that can affect you in so many negative ways.
Yeah.
Like you've just mentioned there, Chuck Liddell. There's a few other fighters where they've been hit and miss, like after they've got caught. Look at Dominic Reyes, man. It's a completely different division, but you just hope that you can't see Volk going down that path, though, can you? But he's definitely done enough to warrant an immediate rematch. People have got immediate rematches for so much less than this.
Yeah.
But it has opened up the division. As much as it pains me to see Volk lose, it's good to see a new champion. I think you'd mentioned that in the stream, because it opens up the division to so many more exciting fights. I'm not bored of featherweight at all, but Volk has been
No.
dominant for a while now and has cleaned out almost everyone else. And now this opens up for so many more exciting stylistic matchups.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing. It's heartbreaking to see Volk losing it, but a new champion is always exciting. And if Volk does not get an immediate rematch, who would you like to see Ilya fight next and have his first defense against?
The knee-jerk reaction and the easy pick is Max Holloway, but he's already booked up for Gaethje, isn't he? I
Mm,
think Ilya absorbed, not much damage in this fight. I don't know. I think there's a few names that you could pluck out of nowhere. We've got
mm.
Brian Ortega fighting Yair. We've got Josh Emmett just coming off a big knockout win over Bryce Mitchell. There's quite a lot in that division.
Yeah.
See how it
And
plays out. Once we get past 300, I think that the path might be clearer.
yeah, definitely. There might be a lot of options there for him, because even if Max loses against Justin Gaethje, there's still that featherweight opens and he could move into a title picture. But for me, I want to see someone outside of this division. I would like to see Sean O'Malley defeat Chito Vera at UFC 299, and move up and be an invading champion. And we have Ilia Topuria versus Sean O'Malley. Big super fight on UFC, I don't know, 302 or something like that. I think that's a great, great fight. And I think it'd put a lot of bums on seats, and it'd be really interesting to see because they seem to have a bit of rapport between them already, don't they? A bit of a rivalry, and they both seem quite keen on it. And like we were talking earlier, with Ilia wanting, well, Ilia might not want that. We've said that he wants a big pay-per-view. Him versus Sean O'Malley sells really, really well, right?
It definitely does. I mean, the only gripe I sort of have with it is champions moving up in divisions when they haven't even defended the belt or, anything, because
Yeah.
he just won it. He's got another rematch set. It's a good fight, and I'd definitely tune in for it. I can't sit here and say, oh, no, I won't be tuning in. The UFC would lose a fan if that happened. Definitely. Would be a great fight. Stylistically, it makes sense. Both heavy
Yeah.
hitters and both strikers. Excited for Ilia because, like I say, it does shake up the division. He's young. He's got some serious power, and
Mm.
he's now the champion. The world's his oyster, man. Now he's going to
Yeah.
go down as one of the best fighters in that featherweight division. It's only the 5th champion in that division.
It's crazy. That's how strong this lineage of the champion is with this division, isn't it? And it's, to knock off the featherweight GOAT is just a crazy achievement. Even if Volk beats him in the rematch, he's still got that and he's still got that momentum there. And just, it's a fantastic thing. It's like I said during the live, I said, whether Ilya's going to be champion or not today, he is going to be a future champion no matter what. And he's still so young. I think he's got a long reign ahead of him, but we'll have to wait and see how that plays out.
I think you
So
said
then,
that
Mark,
about 5 seconds before he knocked Volkanovski out and became the champion.
yeah, I didn't I? Literally timed it just right, or timed it just wrong, I guess. But then, Matt, we move on to one of your favorite fighters. Bobby Knuckles is back in the win column and defeated Paulo Costa via decision. But it was touch and go, wasn't it, at the end of the first round? Did you think that was the end for Whittaker there?
Definitely, and you look at his face; it looked like a bag of spanners as well. Like, because Paulo Costa, I'm sure he's cheating there. He's putting his gloves in grit or something like that. I don't know. There's some bleach on his hands there, but yeah, that spinning heel kick at the end of the first round. A few more seconds, we could have seen Costa back up in title contention.
Yeah,
But Whitaker kept the pace. He kept leaning in, and he were gaining so much success with the double jab and the hook as
yeah.
well. And Costa he didn't seem to be able to capitalize on that, did he? He didn't bring anything else to the table with it.
No, that's Costa's real big problem, isn't it? He's a fantastic fighter. He's durable, he's tough, and he's got some great power. But his ring IQ just seems so poor. It's like Rob just kept doing the same thing over and over and over again. I thought, why aren't you even attempting to counter this, Costa? It felt like he was just going, right, I'll just wait and I'll try and throw another spinning wheel kick in a minute. It's just, I don't know what he was thinking. But Mark, were you surprised that Paulo Costa even turned up to this fight? It felt kind of weird seeing him back in the octagon.
It was, and it feels like a return when it shouldn't, because he's meant to be an active fighter, but it feels like a really big deal because it's so long, and it's so seldom that you do see Costa in the cage.
Mm.
I mean, I don't think there's any shame in losing to Robert Whittaker.
Nah.
Because Costa has solidified himself. He's up there in the top 10. I'd love to see him just be a bit more active and fight the other contenders in that division, because it can really open up for some fun matchups. Imagine Costa versus Cannonier or something. If he can get together a couple of wins, he's back in that title contention. But it shouldn't feel like a big deal. It shouldn't feel like a return for
No,
Paulo
no.
Costa. He's meant to be an active fighter. He's still only, is he 31? Something like
Yeah,
that.
he's young, definitely. He's not old, and yeah, he needs to be more active, doesn't he? Because he puts on great fights, and I love seeing him out there. Like he puts on really fun performances. He's
Mm.
charismatic. He's a hunk. I just want to see him fight more often, and it's
I think
great
I
to
think
see
you
him
just want to
back.
see a bit more of Paulo Costa than what you're letting on with you're saying that.
Well, I think I've let on quite a bit, Mark. So then, Mark, with sort of Rob's clinical performance and his history as champion, do you think that now puts him straight in line for a title shot?
I think it's hard to deny him, to be honest. He's always been there. And, in previous years, there's been Israel Adesanya, who's the only one who's above him. And now just Duplessis, he's the only one who's above him. And you feel a bit like, well, it's hard to deny him, to be honest. And I don't think anyone would be mad if Rob got a rematch with DDP for the title.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the beast with UFC, though, isn't it? You know, it's not always just a clear, straight cut path to the title. MMA
No.
math doesn't make sense. Someone loses and they go back underneath. It's just how it goes. I don't think anyone would be mad. And I'd kind of like to see it maybe later on in the year just to close out the year. What do you think? Do you think he's done enough or do you think he's got to be a little busier?
I really don't know. It's so tricky because you've got three former champions, haven't you? Now you've got Sean Strickland, Izzy,
Mm.
and Robert Whittaker, all wanting to fight DDP. And the only one who's not fought him and not a rematch would be Izzy. But Izzy's coming off a loss. So does he deserve a title shot more than Robert Whittaker? It's so difficult. I really don't know who deserves it. I think I'd be happy with either of them, really. Maybe not Strickland. I don't think I really want to see that fight again. It was a fun fight, but I'm not the biggest fan of Strickland, so I don't really want to see him push back into a title shot. I think I think ideally though, I would like to see Whitaker get the shot and Izzy maybe has a rematch with Strickland. You have the two losers fight each other, and then the two winners fighting each other. And we get the rematch with DDP and Whitaker. Maybe at 302, 303. Because I think Whitaker needs a little bit of time off because he looked rough after that fight. It was
Oh
covered in
man,
blood.
I think that both him and Costa they're gonna be sore this morning. The
Definitely.
legs in there, they were just chewed up. It was like they'd have let a bloody pit bull or an XL bully have a go on them, weren't they? They just looked beat up. Whitaker's leg, I think in the first minute, it like, yeah, all right, that's getting swollen now. Costa's kicks are so underrated, and not enough people talk about him. He's got ridiculous power, and he can throw out a head kick like a jab. It could just
Yeah.
come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden it's bang there. You know, the spinning heel kick landed, obviously did a lot of damage at the very end of the first round. But them head kicks, although Rob was blocking, they can get through and there's so much damage there. Your arm can't block a shin at
No.
full pelt.
It was scary, that big kick. And, Costa's got some real power on him, hasn't he? But let's move on now, Mark. We have Ian Garry beat Jeff Neal by a split decision. Do you genuinely think this fight was a robbery?
It's hard to say if it was a robbery. We've seen worse decisions go down,
Mm.
but it could have gone either way. I wasn't like, dying on the fence, but you think maybe is there a little bit of favoritism to not want to extinguish the fire of Ian Garry
It's
on the
hard,
way
isn't
up?
it?
When it's like, well, we could give the decision to Jeff Neal, or we could let Ian Garry go, run, be free, and get yourself a title shot, boy. After this, it stinks a little bit, and it doesn't seem sincere. Whether you think it's a robbery or not, it's not a clear cut decision, is it?
No, it's not clear cut at all, but I think one of the judges gave it a 30-27 to
That's
Ian
crazy.
Garry. That's just clear favoritism, surely. Like, how can you say Jeff Neal did not win that first round? Yeah, I can see contention for the second and the third, but surely Jeff Neal won that first. And when someone's judging a fight that poorly, you just think, I don't think you should be a judge at all, right? It seems as though they need to get some better people in that booth.
I think definitely. It's just it sucks a little bit though, and it's horrible that we've got to have this conversation as regular as what we do
Yeah.
about the judges. Did they get it wrong? Ian Garry, I think no matter he's won this fight on a decision, but I think it's proved that he's got a little bit of work to do before he can get up in them top contenders. Because once you get up there, they are no joke, and they won't let it go to the judges.
No, definitely not. If you're struggling with Jeff Neal, you're going to struggle near the top, especially with like people like Shavkat up there now as well, and JDM. People of Ian Garry's caliber, his contemporaries are doing so much better. It's not looking good for Ian, is it? And were you sort of disappointed with Ian Garry's performance? And do you think this has kind of derailed this sort of Ian Garry hype train?
I think it's just the talk, because I mean he talks a hell of a lot, and
Mm,
whether he's talking about you love me or hate me, I'm here to stay. That would suggest to me that you're going to put on this dominant performance. He's got great knockouts and he's got great finishes, but it's not all about that. But it's got to be a clear cut decision that, yeah, okay, that was the decisive win before you start talking like this. You've got to be able to back it up. I think we've said this quite a few times before about other fighters. And when you scrape a questionable decision, it kind of taints all the trash talk that he's been saying. With Jeff Neal, he didn't actually go in too hard, but man, he's becoming a very unlikable guy, and you wonder what's gonna be next for him. How are the fans gonna react?
Yeah, he really is, unfortunately, isn't he? He is just so unlikable. And it's such a shame because when he first came in, I didn't like him. And then he seemed to mellow out and I really liked him. And then I hated him again. He's just terrible. And I think, unfortunately, I think when you're putting on performances like this and you don't have the fans behind you, it's hard to get back on track, isn't it? Literally for this hype train. But Mark, at the end of this fight, he called out Colby Covington. Do you think that's a fun fight to see? And is it a fight you'd want to see?
It's a fight. If you'd have asked me 2 months ago, I'd have said no because Colby's leagues above him. Now Colby disappointed me so much with his performance against Leon Edwards. I want to see Ian Garry beat the living hell out of him. I'd love to see that. I mean, I don't think he's quite there yet. No matter how poor Colby's performance is, I don't think Ian Garry's at that caliber yet. I think he's got another fight or two yet before he's up in that top three. I don't think
Yeah.
it's very fair at all.
No, I think it's a very sly sort of call out for Ian Gallagher because he knows Colby looked a little bit past it in his last fight, and he can fight someone coming off a loss. Who's this top contender that could push him into a title shot very quickly?
Mhm.
A win over Colby can put you into position for that. But I think with how much he was struggling with the clinch with Jeff Neal, I think he'll really, really struggle with Colby's grappling. If Colby's on point, I think it could give him a lot of problems.
It's just a big if though with Colby, isn't it? I mean, after his
Yeah.
last one, after we talk about a hype train and how much trash talking you can't back it up. Colby, that was the definition of it. So it
Yeah.
leaves such a bitter taste in your mouth. This is 2 months ago, and I'm still talking about it like it was such a disappointing performance. So you think, like you said there, it's a sly call out
Mm.
for him to knock off a big name like Colby in order to get like a backdoor entrance to the
Yeah.
title. But we've said before, Colby, he needs to do something special in his next fight. And a win over someone like Ian Garry could make sense. But again, we'll see what happens. This is just
Mm.
speculation and this is just matchmaking when we don't sign the paychecks.
Yeah, it's a fight I would like to see. It would be fun. But like you were saying there, with Colby's lackluster performance last time round, it's just hard to buy into Colby now, isn't it? Talk as much trash as you want, but it'd be a terrible press conference between the two. And I don't know if the fight would be that great. But moving on to a little bit of a lackluster performance, Henry Cejudo lost to Marab via decision. But Mike, with how good Cejudo looked in the first round, were you expecting a bit more from him?
I think if he kept that pace that he had in the first round, we could be having a very different discussion right now. Because
Mm,
Henry Cejudo felt like, all right, he's back now. And in the second and the third, I'm not gonna just say, oh, it's his cardio or whatever, but it may just have a point of ring rust as well.
yeah.
I just believe that this was the final chapter in Henry Cejudo's career. He left in 2020 when he really shouldn't have done, just trying to get a bigger bag. After 3 years of almost begging, he'd come back and he managed to get the title shot against Aljamain Sterling. Didn't go his way. He's fought one of the top contenders who's now surely on for a title shot, and it's just not gone his way. And I think it's just time to admit, right, okay, Cejudo's done.
Yeah, I think the second I saw Marab pick up Cejudo and drag him across the whole octagon, it just felt, oh, unfortunately, Cejudo, this is over for you now. It's not. He threw away his prime, didn't he? He literally threw it away, and he's now getting beaten up by Aljamain and Marab, and I think it is time he hangs up the gloves. And it's a real shame because I'm a big fan of Cejudo and I wanted to see him get up there. And I'd love to see him have one more run at the title. But it seems that that's not going to happen. But talking of the title, Mark, do you think now Marab, after this dominant performance, is going to be in title contention? And do you think he gets the winner of Cheeto versus Sean O'Malley?
I think absolutely. I think it's so hard to deny him there.
Yeah.
Because it works out perfect, doesn't it? The next event is Sean O'Malley versus Cheeto, and then so that opens up for 3 or 3, 3 or 4, whatever event it is
Yeah.
going to be. I think that stylistically could be a really good matchup because you can see cases for both Sean O'Malley keeping Marab at distance or Marab just being the grappling machine, the clues in the name that he
Mm,
is. But
yeah.
again, it's a lot of speculation, and the day of the fights when they've all done, that's us greedy UFC fans, isn't it? Well, what's next? Well, what's next? You know, and they're still licking the wounds, you know. But
Yeah.
I think, yeah, this is probably the unfortunate end to Henry Cejudo's career, and it's not gone the way that he wanted to go. And I think you hit the nail on the head there when you said he threw away his prime.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a case of believing that you were a much bigger deal than what you were. He retired and almost expected to get thrown millions and millions to come back and return. And you think UFC's moves quick, and they kind of forgot about you.
Yeah, they really did, didn't they? That's it for Cejudo, isn't it? I just can't see him returning now. And it's a real shame. I was hoping for a lot more from him. And yeah, I think you're right there. Marab has to move up and he has to get the title shot. I don't think you can deny him any longer. And now that Aljamain's not there, it's set that path free for him, hasn't it? He can step forward.
Mhm.
But overall, though, UFC 298 was a really, really fun card. We had some technical masterclasses that was heartbreaking seeing Alexander Volkanovski get knocked out. Thank you for watching. If you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help us out.